Good morning. Welcome to the Mind of STEM channel, where I am giving you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm your host, Leon Jones, and in today's lecture, I'm going to talk about a field that is part of the built environment, and that field is architecture. So today's topic is going to be the field of architecture. And when we talk about architecture, one thing that stands out is the word arc. Now, when we deal with architecture, we deal with aesthetics. How your building is going to look internally and externally. Now, there are some projects out there that cannot be built. But if you're going to be an architect, you have to have a creative mind because academically, you're going to be working in a studio environment. And you're going to have to get a license if you want to be an architect. And a lot of the specifics are developed by the AIA, the American Institute of Architects. Now, what is architecture? You hear the term every day. Do you aspire to be an architect? Well, when it comes to architecture, architecture is the art and science of designing buildings and structures. Now, a wider definition would include the design of the total built environment from the macro level of town planning, urban design, landscape architecture, to the micro level of even creating the furniture that you have in your house. Because architecture is both the process and a product of planning, designing, and construction form, space, and ambience that reflect functional, technical, social, and aesthetic communications, or let's say considerations. Now, architectural design usually must address both feasibility and a cost for the builder, as well as function and aesthetics for the user. Now, some programs are theory based programs, while others are design based programs. And when I talk about theory versus design, I'm simply talking about academics because you have a BS in architecture, you have a master's in architecture, a bachelor of architecture. Some architect programs are 5 years, some are 6. It just depends on what kind of degree you get. Now, just like with engineering, architecture has its own common specializations or disciplines. Now, the first that I'm going to talk about is architectural engineering. Now, architectural engineering emphasizes the engineering aspects of the building design and construction process. Now, this is a multi-discipline engineering approach with a focus on architecture and design. Now, architectural engineering includes the design of building systems, and they include electrical, lighting, HVAC, which is heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration, and structural systems. Now you also have architectural history. Now, architectural history studies the evolution and history of architecture across the world through a consideration of various influences, including artistic, cultural, political, economical, and technical or technological. Then you have environmental design, or some people call it sustainable design. And that emphasizes the integration of architecture with the environment to minimize the negative environmental impact of buildings by enhancing efficiency and moderation in the use of materials, energy, and development space. Now, environmental design or sustainable design deals with the design that incorporates ecologically sustainable energy and waste systems, energy efficiency, renewable energy, water conservation, indoor air activity, and the use of appropriate technology. Then there's general architectural design theory and methods. Now, that basically prepares one for a career as a design specialist or a general practitioner. And within general architecture, it employs a range of methodologies, processes, philosophies, techniques, and technologies. Then you have historical preservation and conservation. That's studies skills required to address issues relating to restoration, rehabilitation, and adaptive use of existing buildings. This is where you get more into remodeling historically functional buildings or older buildings. And you want to keep them restored to look like they did when they were established. Now you have interior architecture. Now, interior architecture deals with the process of creating and shaping interior space as well as surface treatment. Then you have industrial design. Now, industrial design is an applied art whereby the aesthetics and usability of products may be improved. Design aspects specified by the industrial designer may include the overall shape of the object, the location of details with respect to one another, colors, texture, sounds, and aspects concerning the use of product ergonomics. Then you have one of my favorites, and I did a video on it, landscape architecture. Now, landscape architecture involves the art, planning, design, management, preservation, and rehabilitation of the land and the design of human-made constructs. Now, the scope of the profession includes architectural design, site planning, estate development, environmental restoration, town or urban planning, urban design, parks, recreational planning, regional planning, and historic preservation. Usually, when you deal with landscape architecture, you deal with everything exterior, whereas interior architecture or interior design, you deal with everything on the inside. They're opposites of one another. Then there's urban design. Now, urban design concerns the arrangement, appearance, and functionality of towns and cities. Basically, urban design focuses on the use of public spaces. This is where you get a lot of your parks. Now, academic. Academic is very important when it comes to architecture because some of the common degrees are your MS in architecture. Now, your MS or your Master of Architecture is seen as a terminal professional degree, and it usually includes a studio component, a design studio component. Now, it can be offered on two different tracks, the MArch 1 or the MArch 2. Now, the Mark 1 or the Master of Architecture 1 is generally a 3-year program designed for those who do not already hold a professional degree in architecture, or they have not completed a 5-year Bachelor of Architecture program. And if you're in the United States, students must hold a U.S. equivalent of a bachelor's degree and must demonstrate a basic background in architecture, which normally requires students to have completed a studio course in drawing, sketching, sculpture, or basic architectural design. In addition, coursework in calculus, physics, and art history may also be required. Then you have the Mark II or the Master of Architecture 2. Now, that's usually a 2-year program for those students who already hold a professional degree in architecture or have completed a 5-year Bachelor of Architecture degree. Now, students with an advanced background in architecture have been known to complete the Mark II program in one calendar year with special permission from the head of the department. Now, the last one that's formidable is the MLA. That's the Master of Landscape Architecture. It is a professional degree, and it usually culminates in a design thesis, and it can be offered in two different tracks, MLA 1 or MLA 2. Now, one must understand that when you deal with architecture, you have to be very creative. You have to understand that architecture is very demanding. To me, it's more demanding than engineering. Engineering was harder with the math, but architecture, you got to be in the studio. And I went to Temple University, and a lot of students were burning the midnight oil when it comes to architecture. Now, going back to your degrees, you have the MLA 1. Now, that's the Master of Landscape Architecture, okay? The Master of Landscape Architecture is usually a 3-year program for those who do not hold a professional degree in architecture. It's basically the same thing as a MS in architecture or Master of Architecture 1. The Master of Architecture 2, it's a 1.5-year program for students who hold a bachelor's degree in landscape architecture. Then you have the MUD, that's the Master of Urban Design. It's an advanced degree that may be a 1 or 2-year program, and instead of a studio requirement, it's a portfolio requirement needed. Then you have your combined programs, your MAUD, your MARCH, your MUD, your MARCH, your MCP. Those are combined programs in architecture, urban design, advanced architecture, and urban design. Now, these are relatively new fields that now include computer-aided design, known as CAD, and environmental architecture. Now, some of these programs are 1 year in length, but if you begin early, requiring students if you begin early, that's good, because requiring students basically will have an entire year of study, usually summer, fall, and spring semesters. Now, again, when it comes to dual degrees like Master of Architecture and Urban Design, City Planning, completion of the requirements in both areas can take basically 2 to 3 years. Then, of course, there's a real terminal degree known as the PhD or DArch or Design. But when it comes to architecture or landscape architecture, not all programs offer doctoral programs. Now, you have to understand, with any PhD, it's very demanding, because a PhD is a research-based degree that prepares students for teaching and research positions. Now, the DArch, just like the DEng, it prepares graduates for applied positions. So you have research, but you deal with more application of what you're already doing. And to get in any of these programs in architecture, they're extremely competitive. And most programs require a master's degree. And that concludes this lecture of the field of architecture. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. Now, this channel should get a lot more views because I'm talking about STEM. STEM is what makes the world go around. So, when you're in high school, make sure that you are good in your math and science. Because from my perspective, if you want to have a good career, you need to go STEM. The built environment is one aspect of STEM that you will enjoy. But you must be detailed, creative, and disciplined. And once again, thank you for listening to this video here on the Mind of STEM channel, where I am giving you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. if you can't find any of these videos, you can check my videos out on Twitter and Facebook. Also subscribe to the 401 Talk Zone radio show if you want more of the controversial subjects, and check my Blog Talk radio show out if you really want to get deep into raw subjects. But again, if you can't find any of my content, I always post it all on my Facebook and Twitter pages. Once again, thank you for listening to the Mind of STEM channel, where you're getting a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Once again, my name is Leon Jones. You all have a wonderful and blessed afternoon and day and evening. God bless you.